I really wanted to like these guys, but for one reason or another, I just couldn't, and I'll share my reasons with you in this video. Hey everyone, God bless all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the JT1s from the Jordan brand. I'm sure that a lot of people have been waiting for JT's signature shoes for quite some time, as he has been amazing these last couple of years. We have finally got the signature shoes of Jayson Tatum with the JT1s. Unfortunately, ironically, JT got injured while playing in these shoes in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So that is something that we also need to take into consideration as well. Now, we'll start from the cushioning of the JT1s. The midsole material is made out of Jordan brand's Jordan foam, and there is a zoom here in the forefoot area for more explosiveness. You get good court feel even though you are a bit elevated from the ground. I think they did a really good job in trying to maintain the balance between court feel and also the elements of the cushioning system that are being used here. These are really similar to the Jordan 36s and 35s, which also elevated your foot from the ground, and there's some hollow parts here. But unfortunately, in my opinion, in terms of bounciness, the JT1s are not as good as the Jordan 36s and also the KD15s that I had recently, even though these guys have zoom unit here in the forefoot area. But I didn't really feel the bounce, perhaps because of the thickness of the TPU plastic that encapsulates the air zoom units here. So the bounce is not as profound as the Jordan 36s or the KD15s. Now, one of my biggest gripes with these guys is the impact protection. The impact protection of these guys, in my opinion, is a bit lackluster. So there's not much compression of the midsoles when impact is applied toward them. So this is a big problem for myself, and I'm sure that it will also be a problem for many older players who need good cushioning to keep playing basketball. As for comfort, the stepping in comfort of these guys are really good. When I first wore them, very little breaking time is needed for these guys. The sizing will be different from person to person, but I feel that these guys are a bit wide in comparison with the other Nikes and also Jordans that I had. Bear in mind that I got these in Japan, so I got the XDR version for the Asia region, and they are supposedly a bit more wide compared to the North American version. My usual Nike size is US 10, and I feel that I could have gotten away by going half a size down, as these guys run a bit wide and long. But of course, it will always be best if you could try them out at your local stores. The paddings on these guys are adequate to good, in my opinion. The paddings on the heel area here and the tongue here are decent. They're not the thickest. I did, however, feel a bit of pinching sensation at the top here, but it was because I didn't adjust the tongues properly, and when I adjusted them properly, the pinching went away. The insoles of these guys are pretty difficult to take out, but I can feel that they're the type of insoles that kind of mold to your foot once you break into them. The breathability of these guys were also pretty good. As you can see here, that there are some air vents on the lateral and medial side of the shoes, similar to the lino weave that is being used in the Jordan 36s or Jordan 37s, but information on the website doesn't say that these guys are lino weave. Rather, they only say that this is, mesh fabric. The lacing systems used are the conventional, traditional punch hole eyelets here, and these are the kinds of lacings that I like, as they just get the job done without anything fancy. Now, weight is one of the strong points of these guys here, As you probably have heard, there were a lot of elements that were taken off the shoe to reduce weight, and one of the elements is the traction here. The traction is basically etched out from the midsole. There's a bit of rubber, but a lot of the weight was taken away from not using the traditional outsole. When it comes to stability, I think these guys are top notch. I didn't have any problems whatsoever in terms of stability while playing in them. I would consider these guys as mid tops, and they're quite comfortable to move in. Of course, there's little proof that the height of the collar, whether it's a mid top, low top, or high top, is related to the occurrence of injuries, especially rolled ankles. So you can check out my video on that in the link in the description. The heel counters are not the best here. As you can see that they also use the midsole as part of the heel counter here, and the heel counter is not as large as I probably want them to be, but it's good enough. They secure your heel here, and I feel that they get the job done. The torsional support here is basically maintained by the TPU on the bottom part here. I feel that they're not as good as the carbon plates that many high-end shoes use. As you can see, they're not as stable, or they're not as rigid as shoes at the higher end of the price point. Outriggers is a must for me, and you can see here that they have solid outriggers, and as I have mentioned, they also have a pretty wide base, so I really felt comfortable and safe playing in them. Now, as I mentioned, the traction here is a bit of a mixed bag. On the forefoot, you have these rubber compounds here etched into the midsole, and these guys are solid. You can stop on a dime, you won't have any problems whatsoever. However, at the heel area here, the traction is etched into the midsole. They're not the best performers, even though they get the job done. I felt that when I first played in these guys, I slipped all over the place, but once I broke them in, the problem was not really that apparent, especially if you like to play on your forefoot. And durability, in my opinion, is definitely not the best, especially because these are basically the midsole that is carved, so you will burn through them quite quickly if you use these guys outdoors. The rubber here, though, it's decent, but I don't think that they will be that durable if you use them outdoors. Now the pattern here is wavy pattern. Now as for lockdown, I didn't find any problems with these guys whatsoever. I did not feel any heel slippage at all. As I mentioned, the lacing system is top notch as well. So despite the spacey feeling that I got in the forefoot area and the toe box here, I got really good lockdown with these guys. They pressed here in the midfoot area, so in my opinion, lockdown for these guys are pretty solid. So the materials of these guys, the uppers are made of a fabric which they mentioned to be a lightweight mesh fabric. I'm pretty sure that it's a combination of lino-weave and other fabrics, and I think that they are pretty decent. They don't feel cheap at all, despite the really nice price point that they're in, but more on this later. So basically, I have no complaints whatsoever with the materials being used for the uppers. You can also find that they're using some kind of plastic, some kind of synthetic leather here on the heel area as well here, and I can say that these look cheap. There are a lot of details and considerations with the design, as you would expect from a signature shoe line. There are a lot of elements that are related to Jayson Tatum, and this particular color line is giving homage to JT's hometown. There are a lot of varieties now coming out for these, so it shows that these are quite popular. If I didn't have bad knees, I probably would have liked these guys more. In terms of durability, these guys, in my opinion, could hold up pretty well if you use them exclusively indoors. Okay, in terms of aesthetics is a bonus, and it's not really of real substance, but in my opinion, these guys look slick. The design is simple, but it's very pleasing to the eye. The color interchange is somewhat old school, but it's something that I really like. And I personally wouldn't mind rocking these guys casually. So in this price point, I think you get a really good performer. I got these guys in Japan and I got them tax-free. I got them for around $100. And at that price point, with this kind of performance, you really can't complain. For me personally, the only problem is with myself because of my bad knees, my bad legs as well. When I began playing in these guys, I played in these guys quite a lot, and I felt some pain on my shin. The cushioning system, in my opinion, is just not adequate for me personally. But for those of you who are young and play a lot on your forefoot, I think these guys could be a really good option. Now, there are some shoes that are in the price point of these guys. For example, the Luka 1s, the Don 4s, and also the Zion 2s. And I think these guys go neck to neck with those other options. I haven't tested those other shoes yet, but from the other reviews that I have seen, these guys will hold up pretty well. So I personally will not continue using these guys because of the one problem that I mentioned, which is about the cushioning system. But for those of you who don't mind the cushioning system performance, I think you should really consider these guys, as there are a lot of good things going for them. And with the Luka 2s coming out, I think the Jordan line is really solid. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any experiences that you would like to share about the JT1s, please do so in the comment section below. God bless all of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.